Hey, welcome to the Jaybefaunt channel. I am your host, James Fauntleroy. So good to see all of you here on this beautiful Tuesday. As always, the Jaybefaunt channel is also on Revolutionary Blackout Network, so you can find me there on Thursdays for the Savvy and JB show, as well as Sundays for the JB show, and here every single Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Welcome to all. Come on in, have a seat. Let's settle in. Let's all have a conversation. It's good to see all of you here joining me today. Wow. Just to let you guys know, if you guys would like to, you guys can also like, share, and subscribe in the deliciousness. We appreciate every single person who watches and who subscribes. This also helps me out to be able to also inform as well as encourage and inspire people as well as we continue to grow the channel. So thank you so very much for that. Also, if you guys have not, you guys can subscribe to my Substack at jaybefaunt.substack.com. This gives you email notifications whenever I go live, upload clips, or write any articles. So you guys have that there as well. Just to let you guys know, look, I just want to say a big thank you to everybody who has been, subscribing, as well as who's been liking, who have been watching. All of you who are new, welcome to the channel. I just want to say a big thank you to, everybody who has been, pushing me forward, especially when it comes to, pushing somebody like me with my perspective, because the thing is, like, there's not a lot of people like me in this space, right? And so I just want to take some time out to give the flowers that are owed to you, the viewers who actually have been watching me. A lot of you guys have been watching me for the last 3 years, ever since 2021 when I came into the space. So I just want to thank you guys a lot for that. So look, thank you so very much. I am very grateful. And let's say our salutations and hellos to the people in the chat, the people who make this channel possible. So thank you very much. We're going to start off. Hot. We have Miguel H coming in saying peace. Miguel, you always be in my chat, always spreading love and peace. The same thing, CBC voter. Look, we got the oldies but goodies up in here. We have Happy Tuesday at JB from CBC voter. So good to see you in here as well. We have Jacqueline coming in saying, hey everybody, hey Jaybefaunt. Good to see you, Jacqueline, spreading the love like warm peanut butter. You ever had peanut butter that sat a little too long in the car and it got warm? But then you're in the mood for some peanut butter and you take it and it's still warm, and then you spread it over that bread and it just spreads so nice. That's you, Jacqueline. That's you. Notori, my homie. Good to see you, Notori. Look, it takes one to know one, Notori, because you always be looking fly in your profile pictures, because I don't get to see your face, but you always be looking fly. Good to see you. Helio Grigors is in here saying hello to all the beautiful peeps and say Taco Tuesday. Did I have tacos last week? Yep, I had tacos. In fact, I had tacos last Tuesday while watching Savvy Savs. I hope she's watching, because that's what I did. All One Same says, make it a great day, everyone. Yes, make it a great day, not just for yourself, but for others. Thank you so very much. It's so good to see you in here as well. All right. Who else we got up in here? We have Charles J. Says, hey, JB. Hello, Charles J. CJ, good to see you in here. Nice to have you. All right. Everybody that's watching, so good to see all of you that's watching on Twitter, Rockfin, and Rumble. I'm no longer going to be on Twitch, primarily because of, if you guys haven't seen my stream with Rackbone on Sunday, they put out a recent terms of service update. And the terms of service update says that if you use the words Zionist or Zionism referring to a person, they say that is considered to them a slur. That's like me calling Joe Biden a liberal. That's like me calling Joe Biden a Democrat. That's like me calling somebody like Matt Gaetz a MAGA, or calling him a Republican or a conservative. It's a political ideology. That's exactly what it is. And yet, people like Jonathan Greenblatt, the ADL, he can't take people being honest and calling them what they are. Do I get offended when somebody calls me a commie? No, because I am one. Right? I actually get offended when people call liberals commies when they're not. Like, no. Those blue fascists, they're not like me. Don't put them in the same category as me, right? We're the enemies of fascism. We're the enemies of Nazis. We're the real enemies, right? Don't put these guys in the same camp with me. They do not even belong near my camp. And on top of that, you can talk about all the culture war BS, but they don't actually care about those of us who are marginalized anyway. So look, you guys can scream and cry, oh my God, these Democrats, they're communists. Guess what? We reject them. We reject them. So don't come in here and be like, oh my God, well, she was trying to bring communism, blah, blah. No. If they were actually trying to bring communism, you would know it. Because guess what? You'll be like, man, I have housing just because I'm a human being. I have healthcare just because I'm a human being. Oh, I can actually go back to school without having to go into debt? Wow. Yeah. I get to actually choose how my workplace operates democratically. I actually get to vote for who's over me in my workplace. Yeah, the Democrats, they're not with us on that. And neither are the Republicans, because they're all working in cahoots with one another. Welcome to the channel. Sorry, I had to get that out. Plus, I'm tired. Look, I came home from the gym 45 minutes ago. I came home, got a shower, and now I'm before you, as you can see right now. So, good to see you, though. All right. Roger says, what episode are you up to, James? Did you get a chance to check out the Bill Ayer story? Left you a bomb DM. I did episode 5 yesterday. I'm supposed to be going into episode 6. On the thumbnail, it's John McCain. I haven't gotten to that one yet, but I'm gonna try to do it while I'm at dialysis. But yeah, I did episode 5 yesterday. Sorry, I'm going a little bit slow, but it's a lot of information. So, but thank you so very much. Yeah, Bill Ayers. That name sounds so familiar. Bill Ayers. Bill Ayers, wasn't he somebody in media? Big in media? I'm trying to remember. Either way, I'll get into it once I watch episode 6. Jen McMahon says, because they're the same party behind the curtain. Jen, thank you for the truth bomb. Oh my goodness. And we have pitchforks are coming saying hello. Good to see you, pitchforks. Yep, the pitchforks are definitely coming, and we're going to be talking about the pitchforks, why they're coming in this stream. So we're going to get into what we're going to be talking about on the show today. You guys have probably saw it. So we're going to be talking about later in the show, whose fault is it? The source of poverty. These are just a small microcosm of the people as to why poverty in this country exists. They're really the new generation, or kind of semi-old generation. These are the ones who are really manipulating the system to keep it the way it is, right? And we will get into that a little bit later. But I think it is important that we recognize who the real enemies are. And trust me, it is going to be interesting. But first, our first segment we're going to go into, I'm going to be reacting to a documentary. It's a very short one. But I really want to react to this because this was my favorite show back in the day. Back in the day. There once was a young man named James. And this young man used to love the show Extreme Makeover Home Edition. I adored that show. You want to know why I adored that show so much? Because I saw people who needed something like a home, or they needed a better home, and it was just given to them. A little bit of information about me. If you are trying to do the best you can to just be the best version of yourself, or try to be kind to people, try to be good to people, and if I see you win, I'm celebrating. I don't care if it doesn't happen to me. I'm celebrating with you. In fact, if you're in the comments and something good happened to you within the last week, 2 weeks, month, tell me about it. And I will celebrate with you, because I don't hate, I congratulate. And that's the way I've always been. And watch me tear up too, because I do. Because I love to see people win. Like, that's just how I am. I've always been that way. And so Extreme Makeover Home Edition was a reality TV show where the drama wasn't between people, it was life and circumstances that bogged people down. And those life and circumstances were, at least it appeared to be, alleviated when this group of people came in and said, we're going to build you a new house. We're going to make your life easier. We're going to make your life better. I can't tell you how much ABC, the network, played on my heartstrings. And I bet you they played on yours too. Because here I am, tears in my eyes, clapping and happy for the people. And yet, there's more deeper to the story than a lot of people would expect. So with that being said, there was a short documentary came out by Vice News. And I thought it was something good to talk about. This is entitled Ruining People's Lives by Giving Them a House. Let's get into this. And I really want to examine why the way they went about it is problematic. And I'm going to go at it from an actual anti-capitalist perspective. Because ultimately, ABC News giving people houses was really just a way of capitalist exploitation. Let's get into it.
Cassandra, why don't you say move that bus?
Bus driver, move that bus! There was this huge house in front of us, and I'm just like, wow. Like, I think you could maybe see that on my face. I was like,
seeing the house was unbelievable in every majestic way you can see a house. I will never, ever, ever till the day I die ever forget that feeling.
The shock and awe continues when they go inside.
Oh my God, baby, look. Oh my God, look at this.
Do you see why I would enjoy this show? Do you see why I would be so, yay? I'd be in tears. I'd be bawling because I'm just like, yes, average people, poor people are actually winning. This was before I moved further to the left. This was me just being happy to see like people who are suffering day in and day out, who are being trampled and exploited by the system, and then they get a win. They dangled the win in front of me. Disney, you wrong for that. ABC, you wrong for that. Let's continue.
I've never seen a TV that big. Just things you see on Celebrity's House, on MTV Cribs.
Don't take anything, man.
I would say the house like more than 4 times the size it was. Yeah, it was huge.
It was overwhelming. It's like, oh my gosh. It was, I guess you could say, surreal.
Now, nobody's seen it until now. You're going to be the first. Check out your new bedroom.
I felt like a princess in a huge mansion. I remember going through it. It was so big that it was like shocking.
It was a mansion. It was huge. It was really huge. I had never seen a home like that size. I don't think ever in person.
On behalf of Taylor Woodrow, we're pleased to let you know that we're going to be taking care of the mortgage as well. The home is net.
Every time I walked away, I felt confident that these families really were in a better place, that they were truly appreciative, and it was just, nothing but, like we had done the right thing.
With 6 bedrooms, a state-of-the-art kitchen, and a movie theater, it's almost triple the size of their old home. And it all makes for great TV.
Our contractor ended up building basically the biggest house we've ever seen.
But while the house may have changed dramatically in 7 days, the family's dire circumstances remain the same.
We didn't ask that they completely remodel our house and give us this huge mansion.
It was an expensive house. Our first electric bill was like $2,200, which was way more than our mortgage ever was. And I about died. I was doing everything on my end to try to get out from underneath these horrendous bills.
My mom was emotionally distressed about all of that, the bills and like how we were gonna make it month to month. We had to shut down half of our house because, if the electric bill is too high, what do?
This is what they did to these people. And the problem is that it's not that they were given a house. Is that it's the system that's the problem. When we talk about housing for all, people who are not on the left will go, well, you just can't give people housing, blah, blah, blah. And it's always within the realm of keeping this system in place. And yeah, they probably shouldn't have gotten a house that big because of the electric expenses. But also let's talk about the expenses of the electric or the utilities. Because why are the utilities that expensive in the first place? Who do they have? See, we need to go down to the system. I'm not going to blame these families because the thing is like, it's a systemic problem. It's not an individual problem. So the question is, are these utility companies, are they privately owned? Or is it some public-private partnership where they private part makes they make some profit on the side for an essential good that is needed for people to live? And then because of that profit, then it makes people's bills even higher. Essential goods that people really need in order to survive, it makes it higher. What about transportation? What about, education? The thing is, we got to focus on the underlying cause. Because the thing is like, you can give somebody a house, but the thing is like, what about the expenses? What about the water, the gas? Some places, they use gas, especially northern states. What about the places that have, not just electricity, but you also have to pay for your internet? There's so many different things that are involved with the upkeep of a house. Also, you got to remember, a lot of places, most houses have HOA fees. So you have to make sure the grass is kept, right? These houses with these big old yards, did they give them a brand new lawnmower? Did they give them that brand new $2,500 zero-turn lawnmower that they can ride? If the person, especially if the people, are older or maybe infirm. What about that? See what I mean? It doesn't go in, it doesn't take into account, the people and their abilities as well. Let's continue.
I can imagine their electric bill would probably triple, especially if these families were given pools or jacuzzis or specialty items, that maybe they weren't expecting that.
The light bulb for the movie theater was $900 alone. How is that even possible?
And we got you guys computers for everyone in the house.
Bills aren't the only problem. The very expensive contents of their home have also been televised nationwide, and it makes them a target.
There was times when our power was cut off and people would try to raid the house. I don't know if they thought we had money. I don't know if they just wanted everything in the house because they saw what was inside of it.
People think we're rich. We've had people steal from us. People believe we have hidden money somewhere.
So this is another variable. Because when you have a system where it only uplifts just a very small few, and guess what? Everybody else who's struggling, they're going to see that they have and they don't, and they're going to want to take. This is why the crime rates are going up as we speak. It's not because just some people have less morals. No, people are desperate. Some of these people, especially a lot of conservative accounts on Twitter, they'll show, oh, look at all these people, they're looting, especially if it's black people. They'll show, oh my God, look at this. This is what, this America's come to. And it's like, you know what? Does theft happen in more affluent neighborhoods? Yeah. But how often does it happen? You can say, well, these people just need to pick themselves up by their bootstraps. And then here's the problem. A lot of them do. Or people will go, like somebody was talking about how, people are starting to steal more from CVS. What's inside CVS? What's inside of a CVS? Medications, food, miscellaneous items that you need for, self-care, maybe some electronics, 1 hour photo. That's it. Why would people steal from the CVS? Most likely because they're lacking essential goods. And if they're trying to steal something to sell it, it's because people commit crimes of desperation and lack of opportunity because of the system that they are put in. One of my favorite quotes, and I discovered this earlier this year, and I love this quote, is that if a flower doesn't bloom, you fix the environment in which the flower doesn't grow, not the flower. The environment in which people are in doesn't allow them to bloom. So therefore, the environment needs to be fixed. People are people. People need essential goods. Now, you can say, well, they just need to get a job. What happens when that job doesn't pay enough? Oh, well, you need to get an education. Okay, you get an education. but now you're stuck with student loan payments. And now you may default because you can't pay those. You can't claim bankruptcy on those. Thanks, Joe Biden. See what I mean? It's like the only way out is to exploit somebody else in order to get ahead. And that's just wrong. That's not the way it should be. And we can actually have something better, but the people at the top don't want it to be better. And so by giving just a small group of people a little bit more, you're also setting them up to be victims of the system on the other side. When in reality, we should be uplifting everybody. But if you do that, that means the crime rate goes down. If the crime rate goes down, that means there's less money for what? Police, law enforcement, which means we don't need them as much anymore. All these things are connected.
There was a time that we were locking the doors, and as I go up to one of the doors, there's a man standing there with a hammer. And I just start screaming, like, this isn't real life. Is this serious? I cannot tell you how many times the police were called for break-ins and people trying to get in. It was traumatic for me.
I was trying to sell anything to just pay the electric bill. So I ended up getting a loan. We had a limit of $200,000 and we upped it to more. It was getting more stressful.
Despite getting their house and everything inside it for free, the Oakvasts take out over $400,000 in loans just to keep it running. But they're in too deep.
Of course I wanted to keep the house. I wanted to try every effort to do that.
Eventually, the house sells for $540,000. Minus the multiple loans taken out, there's not much left to start over.
I think I walked out with $8,000 of that house. I had to just basically say, that was a nice life. We took an offer and I just let it go.
It was sad. I was sad. I was sad because I saw the toll that was taken on my mom and my family.
Heartbreak for a Michigan family.
They aren't alone.
A Texas family which received an extreme makeover after Hurricane Ike, now forced to sell the home at a big discount because they couldn't pay the taxes.
It seems on the surface like this wonderful altruistic experience being generously offered by ABC.
Her dream home has become a nightmare.
We've been evicted.
ABC's viewers, of course, never got to see any follow-ups about the homes that were foreclosed upon after Extreme Makeover left.
The Vardens feel very fortunate. They know that they are not the only ones out there in a situation like this.
Many of these homes had such exorbitant increased tax rates that the families couldn't pay them, and it added to their financial burden.
The house has been up for sale for almost a year without any luck.
I mean, the biggest thing was having to tell my kids that I lost their house.
The Extreme Makeover home sits on the market, a strange twist to what was supposed to be a dream come true.
Sometimes there are things that happen to people in life as a one-off event, and then sometimes there are things that continue to happen, problems that continue to arise. And, you know, we can't fix that kind of thing. You know, at some point the show must go on.
The show must go on. While people hold the bag, while people are getting the short end of the stick. Because you made out with millions and millions in ad revenue. You know what this is basically like? This is those dudes that have, well, those people that have these channels on YouTube, and they'll show a video of themselves giving, you know, something away to somebody who's poor or, you know, who's unhoused on the street. And It may be like, oh, I'm giving you $400, $500. Here you go. Oh my God, thank you so much. You just blessed me. Next thing you know, how much money did they get in ad revenue from YouTube for doing that video? Oh, we're going to talk it up. We're going to call it out. Call it out. Because a lot of creators do the same thing on this very platform what Extreme Makeover Home Edition does. They will play on the heartstrings of people, get their views up, millions of views, all because of their altruistic attempts to fix the system. And then what happens to the people? Hell, even just giving somebody a wad of cash is actually somewhat better than what Extreme Makeover Home Edition did. But even still, it's like, it's nice, but you don't take into account the people's situation. And the goal wasn't really to actually be altruistic. The goal was to play on the heartstrings of people so that you can actually make more money. If I give you a house that's worth $300,000, $400,000 at that time, but I make $4 million, $5 million from that episode, see the ROI on there?
The show does go on, making $500 million in ad revenue over the first 2 seasons alone. For
$500 million just in the first 2 seasons. By the way, a season is not a whole year. Season maybe 1 episode a week for 6 months. Maybe less than that. Not counting residuals from reruns. $500 million? That's a huge ROI. That's why they were doing it. God, these companies, I can't stand how they operate.
For ABC, it's the gift that keeps on giving.
They are getting rich off of your story. If you will actually have your life and your family's financial position negatively impacted over the long term because of the 1 week they spent with you, from a corporate ethics point of view, it is their responsibility.
I don't think they understand the repercussions of what they were doing. And I think they should take responsibility for that.
We suffered great financial strain. We suffered great issues because of this. And it's not just 7 days of a building of a house. Those 7 days have impacted our life for the rest of our life.
And that's one of the things I talk about, is that it's the system that's the issue. Because you can dump a really nice house on a family, but the thing is, like, are they able to upkeep it? What about other expenses? What about the variables of neighbors who may be in that neighborhood, who may see, who may get, who may have ulterior motives because they see you have so much more than the rest of them, or people within the surrounding area because you pulled up a family, but everybody else is still in the lurch. That's no different than somebody having a big come up in the hood, and then they come over, flashing their car, flashing all the stuff that they got, and then next thing you know, the dudes that they were their boys back in the day, oh, nah, this is business. Now we're just going to take your shit because you got out the hood and you come back flashing everything, but you don't give back to the hood that raised you. And so now people are going to take. because people are desperate. That's America. America is the hood. That's how it's been. That's how it's been since its inception. And when I look at companies like this, and yes, blame Disney because Disney is the parent company of ABC. This is what they did to people. It's sad. It makes me angry that they played on our hearts to make it seem like that they were doing something good for the average forgotten person, when in reality, it was just a source of exploitation in order for them to make more money. This is why they do not want us to change the system. Because instead of it being Extreme Makeover Home Edition, it will be Extreme Makeover Systemic Edition. Because if you actually change the system on a fundamental level, guess who gets humbled? Because I want to do an extreme makeover for the Peter Thiels, for the Jeff Bezoses, for the Elon Musks. I want to do an extreme makeover for them. I want to do an extreme makeover so that nobody ever has to deal with it, being unhoused, or ever has to worry about not being able to get an adequate education, or ever have to worry about not being able to eat. That should not be in this country. And this is why that makeover is going to happen. We've got to make it happen. A real, true extreme makeover. And there's ways to go about it. And part of that means building dual power, doing mutual aid, and circumventing the system, using our abilities, whatever we can, in order to make it so that doing mutual aid is productive. Also, cutting off the path that these people who are corporate dictators would do by pushing for things like local city legislation, or pushing for ballot initiatives that would make it easier to do mutual aid within your areas, so that you don't have to contend with these puppets of the corporate dictators as they try to make the laws easier for them, but they try to make it harder for people like you and me in order to be able to help out our fellow neighbors. So, yeah. Shame on Disney. Shame on them. Go ahead and give a like. Thank you very much for that. Man, I cannot believe I used to love that show. Man, did you guys ever watch that show back in the day? I did. I loved it, man. I look forward to that show. All right, checking on the Rumble. We're good on Rumble. Let's check Rockman. All right, we got a few chats on Rockman. Let's go. Oh, I forgot to eat my apple. Oh, well. It is what it is, what it is. All right, so let's go to the Rockman. First of all, we got Mr. Roger Meadows coming in here. It says, to answer your question for the show title is 2 words, Lewis Powell. That is what led to unions and as a result, workers losing power to regulate capitalism. True. Also, move to amend. This is how we resolve it. I call this the Eric T. Red. You know Eric from Sabrina's show. Yeah. It says, my way to solve it is Southpaw style, create a path forward so workers to birth, grow, and proliferate subsidized cooperative stakeholder economy through the worker cooperatives and other types to smoothly transition us out of the corporate economy to the cooperative economy. This is the perfect opportunity for you to show that post that you liked on X yesterday when the guy was talking about co-op economy. The Weather Underground was a Marxist organization labeled as a domestic terrorist organization by U.S. government, ran by Bill Ayers. They targeted government buildings for bombings. Bill was who Fox News was trying to tie Obama to when Obama was just 9 to 11 years old, which is laughable. You don't know about them because they actually did the deed of the actual armed revolution going way beyond the Black Panthers. And what was so funny is that they were white. They had two missions: assist Black people in overthrowing the government to make it more Marxist socialist and to stop the Vietnam War. They were actually the John Browns of their time. Oh my God, I'm going to have to look at this. You don't even know you were a copyright strike. You were just following the stream and came right back to where you were still going, didn't even know you were gone. Interesting. Wow. Wait, what? Oh my God. Really? Woo! I'm not monetized anyway. I'm not monetized at all. Wow. They tried to shut me down while I'm live? What? I was just going with the flow. Roger says James don't even know he got copyrighted. He was just flowing with the glowing. He bounced right back and picked up as if he was still going. I never stopped. Ain't no stopping us now. We on the move. Look, I'm not making money off this stream. I'm not monetized, so they can be like, "Well, copyright." No, I'm not monetized. Subscribe to my Patreon if you guys want to. But that's the thing. What? These people have been and you know what? Here's the crazy part. A lot of the copyright laws were written by Disney. A lot of these laws were written by them. Wow, I did not know that. What? I did not know. Look, I'm gonna be real with you. Look, shame on Disney. I will say it again. Because me, what? I'm at what, 4,600 subs? I'm a tiny little channel. And they tried to copyright strike me. Let me check my my dashboard on YouTube Studio. I don't have anything right now. I don't see anything yet. Hang on. I just refreshed. Yeah, nothing. That's interesting though. They tried to shut me down just for reacting to this. Motherfucker, fair use. Fair use. That's what this is. Policy violation. This is what it was. They were saying that, oh, wow. They did this while I'm not 46 minutes and 12 seconds. I've been live. You know, we need a YouTube files. You know, we have the Twitter files. We need a YouTube files. That's what we need. And the thing is like small creators like myself, and I'm not even small. I'm micro creator. We try to speak about things and we get suppressed. We get ignored. And I've been trying to hit 5,000 subs for what, 2.5, 3 years now? Wow, I cannot believe. Wow. I did not know. Wow, I'm looking at you guys. I'm just now realizing this. Jasmine says that the policy violation talk about grifting poor people. What? I had no idea. I had none. Wow, guys. Thanks for letting me know. Thanks, Quantum Alchemist. No, Jacqueline says, did you know he disappeared? The show was suspended for violating policy. This isn't even my main story. Wow, that's crazy. Pamela says, when I first tried to click on watching, it said it was suspended, and then all of a sudden it came on. Nihilo says, yep, clearly speaking truth within earshot of power. Wow. It's crazy. I'm just like, what? That's true, Nihilo. We could use a podcasters union. Yeah. That would be interesting. That would be interesting to have. See, Roger said, I've never lost you since I'm watching you on Rockman. Okay. All right. Whew. This is interesting, though. Well, it is what it is. I'll know if anything's up within the next 24 hours. But I'm just reacting to a short documentary. That's all I was doing. So is Disney going to copyright strike Vice News? Because that's who I was watching. Yeah, H will kill. Yeah, of course. I'm not even monetized anymore. That was one of the ways they censored me, and that was back in October 10th of last year because I covered what happened on October 7th. By the way, let's say a huge shout out to all the patrons on Patreon since we're talking about it. I just want to say a big thank you and shout out, and here are the tiers so you guys can know what is what. So thank you very much to Mega Jaybefaunters, Super Duper Jaybefaunters, Super Jaybefaunters, Jaybefaunters, Comrade, Solidarity, and JB members. And thank you and welcome to new member, Gladwin D'Souza, for becoming a new JB patron. So thank you so very much for that. Also, by the way, in addition to, and furthermore, if you guys have not noticed that my channel is demonetized. So if you like to support the channel, you can support via Patreon or PayPal. So thank you so very much for that. I wonder if anybody's watching on Rumble who noticed anything. I don't think I got okay. Looks like people are kind of quiet on Rumble. They're watching, but they're quiet. All right, so let's go into the next segment, shall we? I want to talk billionaires. The source of poverty. This one is, I think, deeply important for us to get into. Because a lot of times people will talk about, oh, it's your fault that you're impoverished. Or they'll say things like, you just need to lift yourself up by your bootstraps. When in reality, people can say whatever they want. But ultimately, it is not their fault Do people have some responsibility? Yeah, but that responsibility is also dependent on the system that they're in. So let's get into this. It is not your fault that you're poor. When I say something like that, people go, what? No, it's your fault that you were lazy. It was your fault that, you didn't apply yourself, when in reality, we actually live in a system where people can actually inherit millions, if not billions of dollars just by existing. And yet we will give them praise, adulation. We'll give them all the attention in the world just because they were born, just because of the pedigree that they have inherited. Why do people give all this praise and love to somebody like Elon Musk? What did he actually do in order to receive all this praise and love? Did he actually invent anything? No. He was just a kid that was born rich. Most of these guys, they were just born rich. Or they were born affluent. Maybe not rich, but they had a few coins. And a lot of them, they got their coins because, well, their family was in the business of exploitation. And so they had a few money from that exploitation, and so they used it in order to make it grow by further exploiting other people. And that further exploitation caused it to grow. So then they started exploiting more and making more and exploiting more and making more. I want to get into this, but first I want to share another video. And then that will translate into the article that I want to talk about. We don't talk about this particular state very much because it's not really in the news that much. But have you ever been to Montana? I've never been to Montana. I've never even considered going there. But the income inequality in Montana is very stark. Let's go into this. I love More Perfect Union because they do great work. So let's get into this.
Live in the campers, urban campers, as they call us. A lot of us got jobs. The prices in Bozeman, or Bose Angeles, as they call it, everything's expensive here.
Welcome to Montana, a state with gorgeous landscapes, sprawling wilderness, and natural resources that have attracted settlers, prospectors, and vacationers for centuries. But what happens to local residents when the government caters exclusively to those outsiders, tourists, and the ultra-rich? It means that some of the wealthiest people in the country are buying multi-million-dollar vacation homes, and private equity is betting on luxury resorts and high-end development.
Yeah, I guess this is as close as we're going to get. So the Yellowstone Club is the only private ski resort in the world.
And meanwhile, just miles away in towns like Bozeman, housing is now some of the least affordable in the country. It's harder for a Montanan to buy a home than a Californian or a New Yorker. And people working full-time find themselves living on the street.
They're talking about affordable houses. These places like the apartment over there, and all of them, they're anywhere from $2,500 and up.
The crisis is dividing residents across class lines.
If Bozeman is too expensive to live in, choose another place to live.
And Montana's politicians are making housing central in their campaigns.
As long as we got folks that want to come to this state that have hundreds of millions of dollars in their bank account, they want to make Montana into a playground for the rich, we're going to have a hard time having homes for working class people.
At the same time, a movement of tenants and unhoused people in Bozeman are fighting for the right to housing, even as the governor cuts taxes for the wealthy and blocks the policies that could create real change. We're going to go to 3 towns that represent the past, present, and possible future of the state. Each of those stories will show us how the ultra-wealthy are reshaping the American West.
So, this is affecting everyone. When you have the ultra rich using the state of Montana as their own personal playground, what do the people who are average like you and me, what do we do when we can't afford to live there? And let's be real. How many people are suddenly moving to Montana? Not a lot, right? There's more people that live in places like California, Illinois, New York, Texas, Florida. These are, big population centers. How many people are flocking to Montana? And yet the income inequality is still extreme.
Okay, so we need to do a quick bit of history first to understand Montana's current economy. Let's go back to the late 1800s. An hour west of Bozeman is Butte, Montana, a mining town that once produced a third of the world's copper. Butte was once called the richest hill on earth, and local copper barons vied for control over the mines. At the turn of the century, some of the richest families in America lived in Butte. They were called the Copper Kings: Clark, Daly, Murray, Hines. But workers in those mines started organizing around the principle that a handful of people shouldn't be the only ones who benefited from the massive wealth being generated by this industry. The unions were powerful and militant. Some of the most violent strikes and union battles in history happened in Butte. There were years of unrest, but ultimately the workers won a lot of concessions. And for decades, Montana had some of the lowest income inequality in the country. Unfortunately, this wouldn't last. Most of the mines closed in the 1980s, and later a few reopened without a union. As mining and timber declined, the state made a choice to advertise itself as a destination for skiing and outdoor recreation.
The powder? Well, it's dynamite.
Today, tourism has replaced mining as Montana's biggest industry. Montana is creating a new generation of haves and have-nots, with some of the fastest growing income inequality in the country. And the modern Copper Kings are real estate developers and private equity firms.
So I want you guys to keep in mind private equity firms. This is why the person in the center of the thumbnail is Larry Fink. Larry Fink is the CEO of Vanguard or BlackRock. I think it's Vanguard. But you have Larry Fink. And so these companies are some of the companies that own a little piece of every single company that you can pretty much think of in the United States. And so now they're the ones who are literally essentially using the state of Montana as their own little playground. Now, I want to share something before we move forward, because I think this is really important. Shout out to Roger for this, but this is the out of reach from the National Low Income Housing Coalition. Here's Montana. So you need to make $20.73 an hour to afford a 2-bedroom. It's one of the least expensive states, but the income inequality is stark. So minimum wage in Montana is $10.30 an hour, right? Which means you have to work 64 hours a week in order to afford a modest 1-bedroom home at fair market value. let's take a look. I want to take a look at the I want to see the most expensive areas. I should have went to the what you call it. Let me see state data. I want to see what's the highest area. But yeah, you have to make at least 10. You have to make at least $20.73 an hour to afford a 2-bedroom, which means you need to make double than what you have to make double than what the minimum wage is. And so if you can't afford a 2-bedroom household, let's say you're a parent and you have a kid, which is not out of the realm of possibility, well, then you're stuck. And that's the problem in places like Montana. And this is number 42 as far as the most expensive state. But even then, people are suffering in this state. So let's get back into this video. And let's talk about the ultra rich and why they are the source of poverty.
And the workers that are left out of this modern extraction economy are people like Charles Allen Touchton.
What do you got? What are you doing, Miss T?
To your eyes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
What did I do?
running that way.
It's probably where.
Looking good on camera, Charles.
Yeah. Yeah. It's hard to make this mug look good.
During the pandemic, remote workers flocked to Bozeman, and there was a 36% jump in people who make over $200,000 a year. In that same time period, Governor Gianforte made Montana a tax haven for the wealthy. Since 2021, he's cut taxes for the 1% and slashed corporate taxes. Housing prices have soared. The average single-family home in Bozeman is now over $830,000, and the average rent is up to $2,500. The housing crunch has led a lot of people like Charles Allen to live in their vehicles, and it's overwhelmed the shelter system in the city.
We ain't got but about a month, and all this green grass and all you see is going to be under snow. So at least by October, by Halloween, there'll be 2-3 foot of snow on the ground.
Charles.
So everything is cattywampus when it comes to how much you need in order to afford. And it's not like these people who are over these resorts are paying really good money. And of course, states like Montana are tax havens. By the way, we don't have a state income tax here in Florida. So of course, there's a lot of people, particularly people like Donald Trump, is one of the reasons why he likes living here. Because there's no state income tax. And so when you have these tax havens, well, you know, they want to make this place their home. But they don't want to pay much. And so then all the wealth gets concentrated at the top.
Charles Allen moved to Montana to lay stones at the Yellowstone Club, a resort in Big Sky, Montana. To really understand what's happening in Bozeman, we have to go there.
There's a lot of anger and frustration about the ways that Montana is changing, like among all kinds of people, agricultural people, working class people, all kinds of people.
We met with Joseph Bullington, a writer who's been covering the gentrification of Western towns. He took us to Big Sky, where the average house costs $3.5 million, and some of the richest people in the world are buying second and third, or maybe even fourth or fifth homes.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like it's a resort and tourist town. But really, it's not a place where locals come and just like hang out unless they're here to work.
Yeah.
Actually.
Cross Harbor Capital Partners is a private equity firm based in Boston that has been funneling money into the region for over 20 years. In 2014, Cross Harbor created a subsidiary called Lone Mountain Land Company, a developer that has built and owns half of the real estate in Big Sky, 11 million.
11.9.
Cross Harbor Capital also owns the Yellowstone Club, built in the 1990s as one of the most exclusive and well-guarded private resorts in the country. The Yellowstone Club was first built by timber baron and ski enthusiast Tim Blixeth, who bought and traded thousands of acres of land from the Forest Service. The club went bankrupt after a series of financial blunders and fraud in 2008.
Real estate developer who founded the high-end Yellowstone resort near Big Sky has been accused of illicitly pocketing hundreds of millions of members' dollars.
And that's when Cross Harbor Capital stepped in to scoop it up for a bargain price of $115 million.
Oh yeah, so here we are. There's the gate. We're not going to be going in there. It looks like they have it closed off, so we might have to turn back around here. I mean, yeah, I guess this is as close as we're going to get. But yeah, you can kind of look up in there a little bit. And there's a golf course out there somewhere. Clubhouse, membership costs the price of one of their multi-million-dollar homes, plus like some annual dues.
Some of the members include Justin Timberlake and Tom Brady, as well as some very rich people who you've maybe never heard of. Waffle House chairman Joe Rogers Jr., Blackstone CEO Steven Schwartzman's son, Teddy, the guy who founded Slack. Recent reporting from Forbes showed membership was up to $78,000 a year and a one-time payment of $500,000. And like Joseph said, the cost of buying or building your own mansion. Yellowstone Club sits at the edge of Big Sky, and to the east are the gates of the Yellowstone National Forest.
I think that the reason that wealth is moving so steadily into this area, like the greater Yellowstone area, is because Yellowstone is known for being one of like the last intact ecosystems on Earth. This kind of growth has its own ecological consequences.
Cross Harbor Capital has expanded Yellowstone Club to 885 members and has made the club into what amounts to a standalone city. Work trucks, vans, and commuters drive up and down the road leading to the club, which employs about 1,700 people during its peak season. 74% of the workers in Big Sky commute, and most of those workers live in Bozeman. Big Sky.
So thinking about this, and when it comes to the wealth income inequality, 1,700 people during this peak season, you don't have that many people working for this company, and how much are they making? And if you're not part of that company, then if you're making below that, when I talk about, the fact that them hoarding their wealth is the reason why we're in the system that we're in, this is the reason. So this is what's happening in Montana. And this actually translates into why I wanted to read this article that actually talks about, the wealth of the very rich. This is out of ProPublica that actually came out not too long ago, a few days ago, actually. It says 10 ways billionaires avoid taxes on an epic scale. All right. So, of course, you have, these billionaires here. This actually came out 2 years ago. So it says last June, joined on the largest trove of confidential American tax data that's ever been obtained. ProPublica launched its series of stories documenting the key ways the ultra wealthy avoid taxes, strategies that are largely unavailable to most taxpayers. To mark the first anniversary of the launch, we decided to assemble a quick summary of the techniques, all of which can generate tax savings on a massive scale, revealed in the series. So it talks about the ultra wealth effect. So our first story unraveled how billionaires like Elon Musk, Warren Buffett, and Jeff Bezos were able to amass some of the largest fortunes in history while paying remarkably little tax relative to their immense wealth. They did it in part by avoiding selling off their vast holdings in stock. The U.S. system taxes income. Selling stock generates income, so they avoid income as the system defines it. Meanwhile, billionaires can tap into their wealth by borrowing against it, and borrowing isn't taxable. Buffett said if he followed the law and preferred that wealth go to charity, the others didn't comment beyond a question from Musk. So ultimately, what they do is they get around it. And so when people talk about, well, we want to do a wealth tax, you can tax the income all you want, but they're not necessarily pulling in their income by selling off their stock. And a lot of times when we talk about taking from the billionaires, people talk about they're paying their fair share. Technically, they are, according to the law. That's how it works. But you never actually talk about, I never hear any, well, I should say I don't necessarily hear a lot of people talking about taxing stocks, bonds, things like that. And ultimately, this is how they get around it. And a lot of them, they will put their money in a trust, and then they will just pull from that. Or they'll pull from their insurance. There's many different ways that they do it. But let's continue. It says the $5 billion IRA. It says, while billionaires use less conventional ways to avoid income, we found tech mogul Peter Thiel amassed a $5 billion Roth IRA, a type of income account that shields income from taxes and is intended to help low and middle class savers prepare for retirement. Back in 1999, Thiel stuffed low value shares of the company that would become PayPal into that account. A maneuver tax lawyers said that risked running afoul of IRS rules. It's not clear if the government ever challenged the move. He's set up to reap billions of untaxed gains. Thiel did not respond to questions of the original article. That's another one. Number 3 says the $1 billion parlor trick, turning high tax rate trading into low tax rate income. Even when tech billionaires do show income on their tax return, they tend to pay relatively low income taxes. That's because the type of income they have, gains from long-term investments, such as from stock sales, are taxed at a lower rate. But what do you do if you're making over $1 billion a year, and it's largely from short-term trading? Do you just accept that you'll pay a higher rate on all that income? As reported this week, Jeff Yass, head of one of the most profitable firms on Wall Street, did not meekly accept this fate. Instead, his firm, Susquehanna International Group, found creative ways to transform the wrong sort of income into the right kind, generating tax savings that exceeded $1 billion over just 6 years. Susquehanna declined to comment, but in a court case that centered on similar allegations, it maintained that it complies with the law. The thing is that's the problem. They do comply with the law. The problem is actually the law. Because who makes the laws? Who dictates to the people what the law is? They make themselves sound like they're all altruistic, not altruistic, but that they're noble and saying, well, we follow the law. But then when we try to get the law changed, then that's when they're the ones who are wanting to bash our heads in. Or if they are disobeying the law, they get a slap on the wrist. This reminds me of, the story that I was talking about with Rick Scott, senator from Florida, when he did the Columbia scandal, sorry, where he scammed basically Medicare out of billions of dollars. And what did he do? Did he face any jail time? Did he face any prison time? Absolutely not. This one, number 4, is very interesting. The magic of sports ownership, making money while legally reporting losses. The tax code offers business owners a slew of methods to erase income through deductions. None more awesome than buying a sports team, as former Microsoft CEO Steve Ballmer did with the Los Angeles Clippers. It doesn't matter whether the team is actually profitable and growing in value, it can still be a write-off. In some cases, we found owners could effectively deduct a given player's contract not once, but twice. They're allowed to take deductions comparable to those for factory equipment that loses value as it ages, even as teams almost inevitably gain in value. That's one reason owners tend to pay far lower in taxes than the athletes they employ, or even the people serving beer in the team stadium. In our story, we found a Clippers arena worker who made $45,000 a year and paid a higher tax rate than the billionaire Ballmer. Ballmer says he pays the taxes he owes. You know, this reminds me. Right here, it says it doesn't matter whether the team is actually profitable and growing in value; it can still be a write-off. It says in some cases, we found owners could effectively deduct a given player's contract not once but twice, but they're allowed to take deductions comparable to those for factory equipment that loses value as it ages, even as teams almost inevitably gain in value. That player's property, that player essentially is being taxed like their chattel. Doesn't that interest you? It's interesting because it's just like you can take taxes on a player on their income. Wild, right? They're allowed to take deductions comparable to those for factory equipment that loses its value as it ages, even as teams almost inevitably gain in value. That sounds like they're being viewed as chattel. It says, build, drill, and save. The real estate and oil businesses can both be tax havens. In certain industries like real estate or oil or gas, the tax breaks are so plentiful that billionaires can erase their income entirely, even as they grow richer. That's how real estate developer Stephen Ross, who also happens to own the Miami Dolphins, went 10 years without paying any income tax. Ross said that he followed the law. Another mogul, this one is in the oil business, managed to tap a near bottomless well of write-offs via one of the biggest oil spills in history. The mogul's representatives did not respond to requests for comment. And so when we talk about, getting out of the fossil fuel industry, this is why they don't want us to do it. Because if we left fossil fuels behind, then they would not be able to upkeep their lifestyle like this anymore through the fossil fuel industry. And those tax dollars would actually be more beneficial going to the people who are at the bottom. Number 6, even billionaire hobbies can pay off at tax time. Deductions from hobbies and side projects, which the ultra wealthy can structure as business Another fun option for some billionaires is racehorses. We found that 6 owners of thoroughbreds at the 2021 Kentucky Derby had taken a combined $600 million in tax write-offs on their horse racing operations. For others, like Beanie Babies founder Ty Warner, it's luxury hotels. The billionaire splurged on a couple of landmark Four Seasons locations and then went 12 years without paying any income tax. So owning sports teams, owning horses, yet they do not pay much in taxes. Meanwhile, those people who may be disabled, they're not getting much. People who are on Social Security retirement aren't getting much. And if you were to increase the cap on income, or if you were to expand the tax on Social Security into stocks and bonds and tax on real estate, as well as certain goods like art, if you were to increase the tax for that and expand it to those areas, imagine how much more we would have for the public goods that we need. Imagine if we took some of that money and put it into housing and urban development so that we can actually help expand programs like Section 8. But they don't want us to do that because then that means they have less money. Let's continue. 7, think your taxes are too high? Change the tax laws. Sometimes it pays to fight for a new tax break. For the billionaires who contributed millions to Republican politicians, the payoff came in the form of Trump's big, beautiful tax cut passed through businesses. We found that the change sent $1 billion in tax savings in a single year to just 82 ultra-wealthy households. Some business owners also boosted their savings with a trick. They slashed their own salaries and categorized the money instead as a pass-through income. So, we, people like yourself and me, we cannot influence politicians in order to make it so that they would lower the taxes or increase the minimum wage so that we can actually have a living wage, because how many of us have enough money to just buy off a politician? Should we have to buy off a politician in order to have these things? We shouldn't have to, but we do. But they do, because that's what they want. And the tax laws really should be something that benefits the public good. But that's not how they do it. They make sure that it benefits a small portion of people themselves. And we can go after Donald Trump for that tax cut, which is absolutely true. We should. But why aren't we going after Joe Biden, who kept most of those tax cuts in place? We can go after George W. Bush for his tax cuts. But why aren't we going after Barack Obama, who kept a lot of those tax cuts in place? See, both parties, they work together. One will rack them up, and the other one will break. They help each other to keep the corporate dictators on top. True story. So this, I'm not going to read the entire thing, but ultimately, these billionaires are the primary reason why people are poor. And people will say, well, it's just because they're lazy. Well, no, people, like over 40% of people who are unhoused actually have jobs. So you can say it's because people refuse to work. No. They're working. So then what is it? Well, they came up with something. They came up with a great idea. Not necessarily. They just had the money from exploitation earlier, and they just use that to invest so that that money grows. But that money that's used to invest also continues to exploit people even further. So therefore, they're making all this money without actually paying people a living wage for the services that they provide, because they want to make sure all that profit goes straight to them. And then once they have all that profit, then they use that profit to grow the money even further. So then what? What they leave in their wake? More poverty, more suffering. They will influence the government to push for more privatization. And what does that privatization breed? Well, if it's privatized, that means that you have to make profit. And if you have to make profit, then guess who suffers? The poorest among us. But then more profit means more people suffer. Because the more profit they demand, then it is more people who can't afford it. More people who can't afford it. That means less people can use it. It's the same thing with healthcare. More people suffer because they don't have healthcare, which means more people die. More people suffer because they can't afford housing, which means more people are unhoused. More people can't eat healthy food, so guess what? Their health suffers. They can't eat as well because food is becoming more expensive, especially the healthy stuff. All because these billionaires, these CEOs, they have to get their dividend checks. And then they don't want to put it back in the system because they want to hoard it all for themselves. These are the people who make our lives worse. Your life is not made worse by the person who has very little power. Your life is not necessarily made worse by the person who has stubble on their face, that's wearing a dress, that is reading in a library. Your life is not necessarily made worse by the person who is needing it's not made worse by the person who's needing. But then you think that they are somehow less than. The person that is taking, money, like Medicare and Medicaid, people who are taking Social Security, people who are suffering in the system that has left them behind. You have more smoke for them than you do for Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos. Why? the people who are literally taking from us and hoarding it, you got less smoke for them? It doesn't make sense. And then on top of that, and rightfully so, we'll get angry when somebody who does not have that much power is given just a little bit more than the rest of us. And then we'll fight against that person who doesn't have much power, but we don't have any smoke for these billionaires that are manipulating our politicians in order to make the system is the way it is. Like, for instance, and I keep picking on him because, well, number one, he puts himself out there. But, you know, you have people like Elon Musk, you have people like the Koch brothers who encourage these sanctions that happen in these countries, like Venezuela. It could be Honduras, Guatemala, what have you, Nicaragua. And they keep these countries destabilized so that they can own the mines and the oil fields, you know, where the fossil fuels are kept. And then the people, because of the destabilization, they will flee here, all for themselves to be exploited. And then through that exploitation, we are also left out high and dry here as Americans, because they're literally causing people to flee here. And yet they're the ones who don't have much power, but we're hating on them, when in reality we should be hating on the people who are pushing our government to keep the destabilization in place. We're going to hate on people who, we're going to hate on people who are LGBTQ for just wanting to live their own personal lives. It's crazy. Like, let's have more smoke for the people who are actually responsible for our lives being shit. You know? That's like being with a horrible, that's like being with a horrible spouse, but then you blame the kids for what the spouse is doing. It's like, go to the source. I don't know, man. I was very enthusiastic about doing this particular, segment, but I'm at a point right now where I look at these Harlan Crows, these Larry Finks, these Peter Thiels, these Elon Musks, these Jeff Bezos, these Bill Gates people. I'm looking at the ones who we don't even know their names. And ultimately, I hate what they have wrought on the rest of us. And then these are some of the same people who are part owners of the military-industrial complex, which causes a lot of the strife in the world. One of the reasons why we have so much money that's caught up within the Department of Defense. The Pentagon just failed its 7th audit because all that money is in the pockets of these very people at the top. Because every single time a bomb is dropped on an innocent group of people, these guys will make billions. Every single time a rifle is shot, they make billions. Every single time your head is bashed and you're thrown in prison, they make billions. They make billions off of our suffering. And they need us to be poor and impoverished so that we keep the system going. Because capitalism is a system that needs a huge mass of impoverished people in order for the small group at the top to have an exorbitant amount of wealth. You cannot have capitalism without poverty. And I'm trying to purse my words very carefully because I don't want to say something that will get me kicked off this platform. But if you're working class and poor, people look at me weird when I say it's not your fault. Because ultimately, it's not. Because you literally live in a system where you give more than you take. Because the takers are the ones that are running the system. We are in a world that is ruled by thieves. And how do you feel when someone steals from you? They're stealing resources. They're stealing time. They're stealing lives. I talked about, and I didn't mean to go on this rant, but I just felt the need to. But I was talking about how on my reading of The Will to Change, how so many men were having to work 50, 60 hours a week and spend time away from kids because we're so busy having to work our behinds off just to put food on the table. And I'm not just talking about men, I'm talking about women too. But then because we don't get enough time with our kids, then what? We don't have as good of a relationship. And is it really the fault of the father having to work all this much? It's the system in itself. Because I can try to make time with you all I want. But that time either has to be used either keeping you housed or being unhoused with you, but we get more time together. That's not fair. It's not fair that parents have to choose between spending time with their newborn or working to keep that newborn housed and fed. It's not fair. It's not fair that if you have a parent that is disabled, infirm, or older, you can't spend more time with them. You have to work your behind off to make sure that they at least can get that care, at end of life. You can't spend more time with them because you have to work all those hours. It's not fair. It's not fair that you live in an area where it's a food desert and you can't necessarily afford to get the groceries that you need in order to feed yourself to be more healthy. And then you have to go to the doctor because you're not as healthy, but then those bills from the hospital because you were unhealthy from not eating as well as you could, Now that's on top of you too. And so every single time I hear about these guys talk about, oh, we're going to make government more efficient. Fuck it. I'm going to say his name again. Elon Musk talk about, oh, we need to make government more efficient. I'm like, this system is inefficient because it doesn't take care of people. And then he's the same one that will cry about, oh, well, we're not having as many kids being born. The birth rate is low. Why do you think the birth rate is low, Elon? Because we can't afford them. If we can't afford them, we're not having them. Oh, but you'll be the same guy that will get mad at us for having all these babies, and then we got to take care of them. Well, guess what? We're being responsible. And now we're being responsible, and now you're mad that we're not having more? Maybe, just maybe, if people actually made a living wage. Maybe, just maybe, if people actually had housing guaranteed. Maybe, just maybe, if people had healthcare guaranteed, we would have. By the way, when Elon talks about the birth rate, he's talking about the birth rate of white babies. He's not talking about the birth rate of everybody else. Racist fuck. And so my biggest issue, and I don't know. Thank you so much for sticking with me for this rant. Is that this is why we talk about changing the system, really from a fundamental level. I don't know, man. I see people falling for Donald Trump. And I'm like, the same people who fell for Donald Trump, you guys are no different than the people who fell for Kamala Harris. But I can't necessarily blame you because you're desperate. We're all desperate. We all are aching for something better. I'm just hoping that you wake up soon to realize that neither one of these people, neither one of these parties, this system will not save you. I'm just hoping that my Black Americans realize that Black faces in high places are not going to save us. I'm hoping and wishing and praying that we realize that we need to come together and take the bigotry that we have against other groups and put it away, throw it away in order to unite with one another so that we can actually have something better. I'm hoping for that. Because every single time we get even some semblance of a hold of what we need to do, somebody says or does something stupid, and then next thing you know, it all falls apart again. Some Black person who is either a child of immigrants or a Black person that is an immigrant will say some anti-Black shit. And then next thing you know, Black Americans will start going up against them and talk about, oh, this person's a tether, or this person, they're not like us. And then Black Americans will go in some xenophobic shit. I'm sorry, I'm saying it. And then next thing you know, they wonder why we can't come together and actually get things done. And then somebody who is non-Black, who comes in from another country that's an immigrant, will say some anti-Black shit. Or they'll think they're better than some poor white American. Or then you get white Americans that think that they're better than everybody else who got a little bit of melanin in their skin. All because of some propaganda that we've all been fed in order to fight against each other. And the thing is like, and then on top of it, anybody that has any type of difference will use these metrics, these Eurocentric Judeo-Christian metrics that makes us feel better about ourselves because we feel that we're more superior, more moral than somebody just because they're a little bit different, when that person's not harming anybody. And then we'll focus on them instead of focusing on the people who I put in my thumbnail. And then we'll think, oh, well, you just got to do the best you can. It is what it is. And then people will be like, well, we just got to focus on being more financially literate. When in reality, you cannot financially literate yourself out of this system. I'm pissed. I'm pissed, man. I'm pissed. Because the thing is like, if we really want to truly change it, we got to change ourselves. We got to change deeply within ourselves and see ourselves in other people. And we got to dream bigger, like dream bigger, man. I don't want just a nice house, a nice car, and vacations for myself. No, I want it for everybody. Remember when I said in the previous segment about Extreme Makeover Home Edition? I want everybody to win. I want the world to win, man. I want the world to win. I don't want some small little subset of people to win. I want everybody. I want all y'all to win. But we're so focused on, I need to win. I need to win. I need to win. And it's like, why don't we focus on collective prosperity instead of individual? This is what the Chinese got right. Now, they may not be perfect. They got some flaws, yeah. But one thing they got right is collective prosperity. Hell yeah. If this planet burns up to a crisp, none of us are making it out. If this planet burns because of a nuclear holocaust, none of us are making it out of it. But it also means that we have to take the bigotry that we may have in our minds and hearts and put that to the side, because you can't have solidarity with somebody who has bigoted views. That means those of you who are non-Black, who may be immigrants, you need to see yourself in Black Americans. Maybe some of you who are Black Americans need to see yourself in people who are immigrants and see the whole reason why they may be coming here. And we need to put pressure and change the system so that they don't have to leave their countries. We also need to, if you're white, you need to take some of the microaggressions, not some, all the microaggressions, and all the views that you may have about people who are melanated, and you need to throw that away and start seeing yourself in them. And whenever we say anything about reparations for freedmen, don't get your jaws in a bunch whenever we talk about something that's owed to us. I'm pissed. And I'm pissed because some of y'all are unhoused. I'm pissed because some of y'all don't have health care. I'm pissed because some of y'all don't have the adequate food that you need. I'm pissed because your mental health is taking a toll. And then that has a domino effect on your neighbors and your family. And then that happens to fall upon us all over the world. I just want you all to win. Because if you win, that means I win. And I want to celebrate you. And I would like for you to celebrate me. I don't even know if I'm going to clip this, but it is what it is. Go ahead and give a like. I'm probably going to get yelled at in the comments, but it is what it is. But thank you very much. Let's go into the chat. I was not expecting to say all that, but just frustration. All right. Let's go to the rock band chat. Roger says, yes, James, a lot of those copyright laws were written by Disney. You found that out watching the series that I sent you. Remember meeting in Orlando, episode 4 and 5. Actually, no, I've always known that for years. I've known that the copyright laws were written by Disney for at least the last 10 years. But that makes sense, yeah. Episode 4 and 5, after the Powell Memo was written, no podcaster union, but consumer cooperative podcast would be more fitting because it means all, not in just the creators, but the people who consume content as well. Speaking of alternative, even though it's not a co-op, you might want to tell people about fan base. Yeah, I have he said, I made it easy for you to collective stakeholder cooperative owned economy. Montana still has state income taxes. They just cut taxes for the rich. Montanans don't have to look anywhere else but within to make it unconstitutional for private equity to operate within their state borders. Just read the first paragraph, James. Yeah. Laws governing initiative process in Montana. Says Montana Constitution requires the constitutional amendments must meet a separate vote requirement. Separate vote requirements and single subject rules are related and have some overlapping intentions and effects. The state constitution reads, if more than one amendment is submitted at the same election, each shall be so prepared and distinguished that it can be voted upon separately. In 1999, the Montana Supreme Court held that this section imposes a narrower requirement than the single subject rule. In the case of Marshall versus State XL Cooney, the court found a proposal unconstitutional for amending more than just one section of the state constitution. A single subject rule found in Article 5, Section 11 of the Constitution says each bill except shall contain only one subject clearly expressed in the title, was prior to 2017 thought to impose a single subject rule on all initiatives, including initiated state statutes. In a court case over Initiative 116, the Marsy's Law Crime Victims' Rights Measure, the Montana Supreme Court stated that this provision applied legislative bills, but not to initiatives. The court overruled the Marsy's Law initiative based on the separate vote requirement, however. Okay, thank you very much for that, Roger. I did not mean to do that. Let me put this here. All right, so see, also make the practice of real estate speculation, leverage, buyouts, stock buybacks, and stock transfers unconstitutional. It says Montana Public Bank, assuming set up the right way, no loopholes would really put a dent in the financial service industry profits. Montana and North Dakota, 2 of 7 states whose population is only one house member. If North Dakota can have a public bank, so can Montana. He said, I had to send you this for fun. On one hand, shows you the beauty of being independent, yet not one person talk policy. Hang on, let me see this. Oh, let me watch this really quick. This looks interesting. What'd you send me, Roger?
You like AOC?
Yeah.
Did you vote for her?
Yeah.
How are you feeling about Trump's upcoming presidency, Trump 2?
I voted for.
Oh, who did you vote for, if I can ask?
For Trump.
Did you vote for AOC?
Yes, I did.
Explain yourself.
She's Spanish, you
Yeah.
know, so I'm Spanish too. The United States is not ready for a woman person.
Si fuera mi, que ¿por quién iba a votar? Por Donald Trump.
Oh, really?
Sí.
¿Por qué Donald Trump?
Porque me gusta.
¿Por qué te gusta?
Me gusta como él. La gente está ahora asustado porque los inmigrantes están bastante feos, lo van a
Pero
desbaratar.
tú eres inmigrante.
Tengo mis papeles. Yo vine por la puerta grande.
¿Conoces a AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez,
Sí.
la congresswoman?
Sí.
¿Qué piensas de
Es
AOC?
buena, me gusta.
Why do you think someone would vote for AOC, who's like as far left as you can get almost.
Because people know more about her, and then, that's how it goes. I don't know much about Kamala Harris. To me, Kamala Harris is a puppet.
A puppet of who?
A puppet for the system.
Why do you think Kamala didn't do as well as Biden did in this area, right where we are now?
Because for black people, we already knew her being a prosecutor, how many black children she put in jail. And we knew her past. She told the world she was a black woman, and she's from India. Not that there's no black in India, but she's not. Us.
You was prosecuting people for a little bit of marijuana. Now you all in for marijuana. We appreciate realness.
The prices is high. Everything is going up. So what you expect?
All she does is giggle and go on these talk shows. She doesn't talk about issues.
Why did you vote for Biden but not for Kamala?
I'm a registered independent. I make up my own mind.
Remember one thing about why people voted for Trump. They want change.
Interesting. Okay. Thing is, it's like, look, like I said, people will swing one way when things aren't going the way that they want. They'll swing the other way. And the problem is that they see the Republicans and they're like, well, we haven't had a Republican in 4 years, so might as well go the other direction and see if that's better. And the problem is that then guess what? In 2028, Donald Trump is going to disappoint a whole bunch of people, and then they're going to swing back in the same direction as the Democrat. And the Democrat is going to do the exact same thing. And this is the problem. That's what I see. Thank you very much for that, Roger. Oh, man. Said citizen ballot initiatives are the only way to get people to vote on policy. State government can emulate federal government. When federal fails, state must pick up slack. The Environmental Protection Agency, New York State has the Department of Environmental Protection. Federal government has the CFPB. New York State has the Department of Financial Services. They got the Fed to print dough for their donors. We got the public bank to stabilize our economy. James, the creative energy was flowing today. You were flowing and glowing. Thank you. Wait a minute. That wasn't the first paragraph from Montana. It was this. It said, citizens of Montana may initiate a new law as either a state statute or a constitutional amendment. In Montana, citizens also have the power to repeal legislation via veto referendum, CBI state. Okay. Thank you very much for that, Roger. Let's get into the rest of the chat. And I'm sorry if my rant went long, guys. I had a lot on my mind. It's just one of those days. Let me see. See, Pamela says, so there's inherent millionaires, but how did the ancestors before them become rich? That needs to be discussed as well. Because they also exploited people for profit in order to get to where they are. Nihilo says, that's also a really good question, by the way, Pamela. Nihilo says, laziness is tied to efficiency and intelligence. If it's more efficient to do less work, we do. If it is less intelligent to do more work than we need to, we don't. It's not just one-dimensional thing. And I would encourage, I read a book called Laziness Does Not Exist by Dr. Devon Price. And what people consider to be lazy really is just the mind and body really trying to preserve its energy because of the issues that we all have to face within the system. And so that was a really good perspective for me reading that book. So that's a really good point too, Nihilo, is that it's tied to efficiency. And it's not necessarily because, like the person, like you have people who are homeless and it's like, they didn't wake up one day and said, oh, I just want to be homeless. And it's not because, oh, they were lazy. It's because of circumstances that befell them that put them in that position in the first place. And then people will go, well, they just need to get off of drugs. And a lot of times people who are unhoused, they get on drugs because they're unhoused. And you got to think about the situation which people are in. Some people will start, partaking in illegal substances because these illegal substances keep them awake, so that their stuff doesn't get stolen because they fell upon hard times and now they're unhoused. Or they need to get away, like it self-medicate to get away in their mind. So guess what? They'll do that as a means to escape being homeless and being unhoused. But then they get addicted. It's a vicious cycle. And the problem is you get people who will talk, bad about people who are unhoused, who have an addiction, but they never talk about the people who are rich, who are exploiting everybody. And they also have an addiction too, to these same substances that the people who are unhoused are addicted to. But yet they don't have any smoke for them. Why? Because we somehow view people who have a lot materially as being blessed or being better than everybody else, when in reality, they're not better because they have more. They're actually worse. They're actually the bottom of the barrel because they dare to exploit people and take more than really I'm saying they took more than they needed. I'm gonna say it. They took more than they needed. They're taking time away from people by forcing people to work more so that they don't have time with their families, so they don't have time with their friends, they don't have time to develop themselves as human beings. And so they take time away from them so that they work more for them, so they make more bricks. And then these pharaohs will say, make bricks without straw now, which means you have to work even more, even harder, even longer for less. So no, I completely reject these cappies for how they manipulate the system to take time away from you and me, to take resources away from you and me, because they have this insatiable greed to win the system. When in reality, they're not winning. They're just losing the long way. Because if something bad happens to all of us, guess what? It's going to happen to them. Because every single generation, there comes up a group of people that get sick and tired of being sick and tired. And guess what? The pitchforks and the torches come to the door. And it's going to happen. It's going to happen. And guess what? Once those pitchforks and torches come to their doors, that's chickens coming home to roost. They fucked around and now they're about to find out. And I'm sick and tired of them. I'm sick and tired of these billionaires. I'm sick and tired of the ultra rich. I'm sick and tired of the system. How many people are stripped of their humanity just because they need to make an extra buck in order to be able to afford housing or healthcare or food or education? Yeah, Pamela. If citizens have to fight for the right for housing, you have a shitty fucking country. That's you, America. Yeah. Sean Miller says these are planned by the city councils and banks. And the city councils are sometimes owned by the real estate people in that city. Surfing to the Max says, looks like the people who have a purge live there. Yeah. JB social emotional learning with Dr. Donnie JB. The only problem I got with this is that Doc didn't cover the Native people at all. How you think they feel about losing their land? That's actually a really good point. That's a good point. That's another point that, look, see, this is why I try to talk to people who are indigenous as well, because sometimes they get overlooked. And this is actually a really good point, because they're losing their land to these rich bastards who are taking it over just so that they can have someplace to play around, 4 months out of the year when the temperature actually drops. And that's a really good point. Thank you very much for that. OBDE Direct says, JB, you're answering, well, how are you going to pay for it? Feds prefer to be beholden to billionaires rather than we the people. Yeah, and the thing is, like, for instance, and people like Elon Musk are like the Department of Government Efficiency, and I'm just like, okay, well, if you want to make the government more efficient, then cut the Department of Defense budget by at least 50%, and then see all that money and put it in places where people actually need it, so that we can actually do better. But you don't want to do that, because that means it's going to be cutting money from your buddies. That means he's going to be cutting money from him, because he gets contracts too. So he's not going to want to cut the defense budget. He's not focused on actual government efficiency. They're not. You know what they're going to cut? They're going to cut Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security. That's what they're going to cut. They're going to cut all the things that us poors need. But guess what? Let's say hypothetically, you cut it away completely. You privatize Medicare, you privatize Social Security, you privatize Medicaid. Guess what? You're going to need to cut some more stuff, because what else is left? And what good is government if it actually doesn't do anything for its own citizens? It's not government anymore. If you keep cutting and cutting to the point where you don't have anything anymore, guess what? You know what? Let me stop. Samuel says, God damn it, JB, I done say you shouldn't play that video, man. I had to, man. I had to. Thank you, Beastmaster. Appreciate it. Good to see you. I feel you, Quantum Alchemist. I feel you. Yep, trying to say these things to people for years. Tia Marie says, rant on. I enjoy it. Oh, thank you. Appreciate it. Official People's Party says, or worse, they get the newfangled shit. Let me see. Yeah. So ultimately, I made my statements. But let me share this, because I think this would help, because I try not to be the doom and gloom guy, right? I try to be the guy that really that talks about what we could do in order to make things better for our system. And I hope that I can help out in any way I can to make it so that it works better for us by doing what we can. Now, remember when I shared the video clip about mutual aid? Well, I want to share this to show what mutual aid really is, because we talked about the different examples of mutual aid. I want to share this because this also shows what mutual aid is and what it isn't, so that we have more of a full scope of exactly what it is, right? So I'm going to go back to Comrade Workwear, and he's going to get this explanation. By the way, I DM him and I thanked him for, you know, his great explanation, because it is extremely vital information for us as people to learn what we can do. So let me share this really quick with you guys as well, because I love, and I'm gonna put the link to their profile in the chat as well. But it's mutual aid charity. So let's go into this.
Is a rich guy giving a poor guy a fish. Mutual aid is sharing the fish we do have and discussing why the rich man has all the fish to begin with. Ever since I posted about mutual aid, did you know the Chicago police once broke into... Think about it like this. Charity is a rich guy giving a poor guy a fish. Mutual aid is sharing the fish we do have and discussing why the rich man has all the fish to begin with. Ever since I posted about mutual aid, I've been getting this question a lot. And we need to be very clear. Mutual aid is not charity. Charity, aid, relief, social services, these are terms that are usually about rich people or the government giving services to poor people. That is, rich and powerful people deciding who gets help, what the limits of that help are, and what strings are attached. Charity is never about getting to the root cause of someone's issue. In contrast, mutual aid is about connecting someone's immediate issues and needs to a broader systemic critique. It's about finding solidarity with other people with different needs and how their issues stem from the same system. And most importantly, it's about connecting that systemic critique to a broader political or social movement. To go a little.
So whenever, you know, those of us at RBN Orlando chapter, you know, we're trying to also teach as well as, you know, provide mutual aid, right? And I think that's one of the points and how we can circumvent this system is by doing more for each other and using our gifts or our abilities for each other instead. Essentially doing the opposite of exploitation is making sure that everybody is good to the power and degree at which you can do it. Because ultimately, that's the system. You're literally setting up a system that is different than what we're in. Let's continue, because this is really good.
A little deeper, charity is about adding requirements and stipulations, while mutual aid is universal. If you need it, you get it. Charity has eligibility requirements like sobriety, participation in job training, parenting courses, cooperating with the police, a lawful immigration status, or identifying the paternity of someone's kids. Charity makes rich people and corporations look generous while upholding and legitimizing these systems that concentrate wealth. The rich get to shelter their taxes while pretending to be good people. Think about it like this. Charity.
So, essentially, that's also a critique of, you know, when, oh my gosh, what's the term that we use for when you have to have certain requirements? What's that word? Help me out in the comments. Where you have to have certain requirements in order to be able to receive certain type of benefits. I forget the name, but ultimately, when you keep it from being universal, that's the problem. Now, there are certain things where there are certain issues that are more tailored or more specific to certain groups, which also should be addressed. Like, for instance, reparations for American freedmen, Black Americans, right? Where that's more of a more pinpointed issue, right? But it's technically still universal because it's for all freedmen, right? All American freedmen, all American descendants of slavery, right? So it still is technically universal, but it's universal within that specific group. Means testing. Yes, thank you, Miguel. But when it comes to things like housing, healthcare, education, stuff like that, means testing does not really address the systemic issue. It just puts a Band-Aid on it, right? And this is why I'm against means testing with things that are not specific to a particular group. So if we want to talk about land back, well, that's something for specifically for the indigenous, right? We talk about the land back, right? We talk about reparations for American freedmen. That's something specific. You know, that's outside of the realm of talking about means testing. But we're talking about healthcare, housing, education, food, environment. We don't want to means test the vital things that we need for our society, right? And so ultimately, if we're not going to means test our mutual aid, then we shouldn't have means testing for these vital services, you know, within our system. But with that being said, you know, I love this comrade's page. It's Comrade Workwear. Please give them a follow. They do really good work. And thank you again, Miguel, because for some reason my brain was blanking on that. I need to go and eat. But yes, there you have it. Comrade Workwear. And oh Lord, I just looked at. See, here's the thing. Roger, I love you. And I'm going to say this. You are an encyclopedia. Oh my God, that brother's an encyclopedia. And you know what sucks? I'm not. That's what sucks. But it's good to have people in your circle that are. All right. Okay. Peak Congress power as it pertains to welfare, the dictionary term, not the check that you get at the end of the month. Article 1, Section 8, Clause 1 says the Congress shall have power to lay and collect taxes, duties, imposts, and excises, to pay the debts and provide for the common defense and general welfare of the United States. But all duties, imposts, and excises shall be uniform throughout the United States. Hang on, let me. Roger, do you mind if I read this? Hang on. This is interesting. And I'll read what you said, Waddy, because that just stopped to read that for a second. Okay, hang on. This is from the Constitution. Article Section 8, C121 says overview of spending clause. Article 1, Section 8, Clause 1. The Congress shall have power to lay and collect taxes, duties, imposts, and excises, to pay the debts and provide for the common defense and general welfare of the United States. But all duties, imposts, and excises shall be uniform throughout the United States. It says this is modern understanding. The spending clause of the U.S. Constitution ranks among Congress' most important powers. The clause appears to first in Article 1, Section 8, lists enumerated legislative powers. It states in relevant part that Congress shall have power to lay and collect taxes, duties, imposts, and excises, to pay the debts and provide the common defense and general welfare of the United States. The court has constructed the spending clause as legislative authority for federal programs as varied and consequential as Social Security, Medicaid, and federal education programs. The spending power also underlies laws regulating local land use decisions and the treatment of persons institutionalized by states, as well as statutes prohibiting discrimination on certain protected grounds. It says the spending clause has not always been understood to confer with such broad authority. The scope of Congress's spending power divided key members of the founding generation. and these disputes persisted throughout the 19th century. The Supreme Court did not squarely address the substantive power of Congress spending power until the 1930s, when it embraced a relatively broad view of Congress discretion to identify the expenditures that further the general welfare. Congress has used that power to pursue broadly policy objectives, including objectives that it could not achieve legislating under its other enumerated powers. Under the usual framework, Congress offers federal funds in exchange for a recipient agreeing to honor conditions that accompany the funds. This offer and acceptance, the court has said, is what lends spending clause legislation its legitimacy. In its modern case law, the court has reaffirmed the central holdings of the 1930s cases. However, the court has also articulated and developed restrictions or limitations on the spending power. Chief among those are factors that ensure the knowing and voluntary acceptance of funding conditions. Other factors affect the court's view of spending clause legislation as well. Now, maybe it's because I'm not the most educated guy, but when I read this, it says Congress shall have power to lay and collect taxes, duties, imposts, and excises, to pay the debts and provide for the common defense and general welfare of the United States. But all duties, imposts, and excises shall be uniform throughout the United States. This tells me, right? What this says to me is that things like healthcare, housing, education should not be means tested, but should be universal. That's what it sounds like. Like, am I wrong? That's how it interprets it to me. That there's not to be any means testing when it comes to general welfare for citizens in this country. And do I sound crazy? Am I misinterpreting that? Because that's what it looks like. That's what it reads to me. Hang on. Let me go back to Roger. Hang on. I'm sorry. It just, I didn't mean to go long on that. But he said, now check out the first enumerated power. What in the world? Okay. The powers of Congress says the legislative powers of the United States Congress are explicitly stated in the Constitution. Article 1, Section 1 states all legislative powers herein granted shall be vested in a Congress of the United States, which shall consist of a Senate and a House of Representatives. The enumerated powers of Congress are laid out in Section 8 of the Article 1. The 18 enumerated powers are explicitly stated in Article 1, Section 8. So, enumerated powers of Congress. Power to tax and spend for the general welfare of the common defense. Number 2, power to borrow money. 3, to regulate commerce with the states, other nations, and Native American tribes. 4, establish citizenship naturalization laws and bankruptcy laws. 5, coin money. 6, power to punish counterfeiters of money and stocks. 7, power to establish post offices and roads. 8, power to regulate patents and copyrights. 9, power to establish power to establish lower courts from the Supreme Court. 10, power to establish piracy laws of the sea. 11, to declare war. 12, power to raise and support an army. 13, power and maintain the Navy. 14, make rules for the government and regulations of naval forces. 15, power to call a militia National Guard today. 16, power of regulating a militia. 17, power to govern the District of Columbia and properties for federal government purposes. 18, authority to create laws that are necessary and proper to carry out the laws of the land, necessary and proper clause. So necessary and proper clause It says Article 1, Section 8, Clause 18 is known as the Necessary and Proper Clause, which gives Congress the authority to create any laws that are necessary and proper to carry out the enumerated powers of the Constitution. The Necessary and Proper Clause has been up for interpretation since the writing of the Constitution. A Supreme Court case that challenged the clause was Makeover versus Maryland in 1819. The court ruled that the Necessary and Proper Clause gave Congress the implied power to create a second national bank in Maryland, and the state could not tax the bank. Another congressional power that is explicitly stated in the Constitution was the impeachment powers in Article 1, Section 2 and 3. Congress has the authority to impeach a sitting president in office. The impeachment process is as such. The House of Representatives brings articles of impeachment against the official, and the Senate is responsible for the impeachment trial. In order to impeach a sitting president, the Senate must vote in 2/3. Article 3, Section 3 gives Congress the authority to decide on the punishment of treason. In conclusion, the Founding Fathers explicitly stated that the powers of the Congress and the Constitution, in order to solidify the power of the government, comes from the people. The Constitution is a protected document that has been interpreted since its writing. The powers of Congress were laid out in order to establish our government for the people, by the people. Interesting. So, those are the rules regarding Congress. All right, so let's go back to the chat. Now the preamble goes even further. It says, we the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establishes justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessing of liberty to ourselves and our prosperity, to ordain and establish this Constitution of the United States of America. So when they talk about general welfare, they're basically meaning the general welfare, essentially. I didn't realize I would be doing a civics class, but I'm glad. Let's see. Got to show this. Oh. Okay, I'll share this. I forgot I posted this. Roger be keeping me on Roger be keeping me honest, man. All right, let me share this. I forgot this. Thanks, Roger.
Do you think the government should be controlled by the public? What about an economy controlled by the public? What if we had economic democracy? Think about it. If our work was used to finance public wealth and public wealth was controlled by the public, then the public would have the power to create freedom. Freedom to healthcare, freedom to food, freedom to housing, and freedom to anything we determined was worth financing and producing. Now, wouldn't that make more sense than working endlessly to create profits for the people who own things? Because under capitalism, that is literally all we are doing, is selling our labor to employers so we can endlessly work to buy access to the things that we need to survive, which means we are not developing freedom. We're working endlessly just to enrich the people who own things that we need. Now, doesn't that sound unnecessary? Shouldn't the goal of working in the first place be to create freedom? Now, if you agree with me, and you agree with this, you're a socialist. Now, I'm glad to have you here. I really am. And I'm going to do my best to jump from topic to topic to build the understanding you need to fully comprehend the movement and what it is we are trying to do. Now, I'm going to begin by explaining what socialism actually is. And socialism is nothing more than a struggle for political democracy and economic democracy. You see, we want an economic democracy because we want workers or the public to control work and the value of work. We want a political democracy because we want the workers or the public to control the government. Now, socialists aim to achieve this political democracy, a democracy where the public controls the government, not the rich, through democratic reforms or through revolutionary force. Now, on the economic front, socialists aim to achieve an economic democracy by turning the means of production, that is land, labor, and capital, from private ownership, a system where the means of production are privately owned to generate profit for those who own it, into social ownership, a system where the public or the workers own production for collective benefit, which can look like any of these three things. 1, public property, as in owned by the public for the greater good of all. 2, being cooperative property, where production is democratically for the greater good of all. 2,
Sorry, I was muted. But think about your public library, right? Where you literally can go borrow a book that is owned publicly, and then you can keep it for a while. Like, you can just keep checking it out, right? But you literally can go and borrow a book, read it, and then return it, because it's literally owned by the public. What are public parks? Public parks are areas in our land where you can go and enjoy nature, right? Where it's supposed to be, technically, I think it's supposed to be free, but it's not always free. But for the most part, you may have to pay a small fee. But for the most part, I think they all should be free at the point of service. Anyway, but you can enjoy that park, that is being maintained by public funds, right? And so now, why can't we expand that to sorry, face said, what's nature? I'm from Jersey. There's nature in South Jersey. But yeah. Yes, Roger. Collective stakeholder, cooperatively owned economy. I didn't realize I was going to be going even further on this. But we shall press on. Let's continue, because I appreciate y'all.
2, being cooperative property, where production is democratically controlled by the employees. Or 3, community.
Okay, so worker production basically means that you all collectively and democratically own the production. That could be the land, it could be the resources, or it could be the establishment. So let's say I used to be a line cook, right, at a restaurant. And let's say we turned that restaurant into a worker cooperative. Well, me as a line cook, I am a worker owner. Excuse me. Just like the bartender is also a worker owner, the servers are worker owner, the hosts are worker owners. So we all vote on and dictate collectively through democratically how that restaurant is ran. And then the money that we make, we share and vote on how it's distributed throughout the company. And then who's the manager, who's front of the house manager, who's back of the house manager, right? Who's going to be the sous chef? Who's going to be the executive chef? Well, guess what? We would vote on who we want to be in those positions. And they're not necessarily over us. They're just coordinators to make sure that these departments are ran in a specific way that is collectively decided by the workers. That's basically what cooperatives or socialism in the workplace or democracy in the workplace, how it's operated. And so then how we decide that the funds are distributed among the workers means that all the profits aren't going up to one particular person or a couple of people who are owners. The profits are then shared among the entirety of the restaurant, all the workers, because we all democratically determine how it's going to work. And because we're all owners collectively of that restaurant. And you can apply this to different shops. You can just apply this to like a shop that does auto work, right? That does auto technicians, and they work in a shop, right? The dudes that do the tires are in one department. The dudes that do the transmission, not dudes, but the people that do the transmission are in another department. The people who work on the engine blocks, the people who, who may be working on the electrical in another department, and they all come together in order to be able to determine like how the money is distributed throughout the company, like how much is reserved just for emergency funds, or how much is reserved for for investment right back into the company. There's many different things. I'm trying to get on Madeline Pendleton because she runs the company that she's a part of in a cooperative fashion where they actually all make the exact same amount. That's why I want to get Madeline Pendleton on. She actually wrote a book, and I think it's a bestseller, but I'm trying to get her on to actually talk about this too. But this is part of socialism, where it's not all the power in one spot. Can you imagine, if you will, Apple being a worker co-op? Imagine all the employees operating it democratically, and then instead of all of the profits going to the shareholders or to the people at the top, like the CEO, the CFO, and the COO, right? The money goes and distributed democratically, decided by all the workers, and now the people who are working in that Apple store, oh yeah, I make $150,000 a year as a worker owner and working in the Apple store, right? And I'm the person at the bottom, but the people that we designate, that we voted on to be the CEO, which is basically a coordinator position, we're the ones who put them there, and we can take them down collectively because we all collectively own the company. It's the best form of business that you can have. And this is what socialists believe in. People talk about, we just want to take, everything away from everybody. No, the problem is we want to give everything to everybody. We want to give you the reins. We want to give you the reins to the system. And people just look at us and go, why are you giving me the steering wheel? Because we want you to drive. Because you are the person that is best known to drive. Because if you know which way you want to go, baby, take the driver's seat. It's all you. But people will sit there and go, we don't want socialism. Because why? Because you're afraid that the system is going to be operated like the cappies got it already? You're already living in capitalism. Anyway. Roger, see what you did? You got me on another rant.
The employees. Or 3, community property, where communities control production democratically. And yes, socialism can be a mixture of all 3 of those things. The general idea of socialism is simply to create democracy on the political level and the economic level. It's also important to understand that socialism splits into many different theoretical groups because socialists disagree on how it should be developed. But we are going to start here with Marxism, the most famous form of socialism. Now, Marxism is a scientific form of socialism because it uses a method known as dialectical historical materialism to analyze class relations, material conditions, and historical development to help us better understand how we can transition from capitalism to socialism to communism. But what is dialectical materialism, right? Don't worry, I'm going to explain it to you in the next video, so hit that follow and stay tuned. Do you think the government...
So I'm going to put his link as well in the chat so you guys have that. But the thing is, like, ultimately, it really is just about putting more of democratically the power in the hands of the people instead of it just staying, in the power being in the hands of the wealthy few. Because ultimately, like, bump that, like, people need to have their power in their hands. So let me see. I'm going to share his TikTok. I was not expecting to go on this long, but Whenever Roger starts putting ideas out there, it's like a flint to a rock. And next thing you know, sparks fly. I'm going to have Roger on one day. I know he's not a camera guy, but he's kind of camera shy, but I'm going to have him on. Watch. Hempcar said that JB's Facebook got taken down. Yeah. I think part of it's because I was sharing too much in regards to being what's going on against the genocide in Gaza. I was sharing too much about third parties. I don't know. For some reason, I can't sign in. I probably can get my account back. I just have to work on it, because for some reason I had to change my password and they won't allow me to change my password for some reason. But I'm pretty sure I'll probably be able to get back in because the election's over. But yeah. Roger says, I sent it to you so you can read it. The Forbes article said that if Apple was a worker cooperative, each member would get paid $403,000. Well, there you go. $403,000 for Apple workers if it was a worker cooperative. See what I mean? He says, one time I told someone about worker cooperatives. He said, no, that's socialism. I'm against that. My answer was, so you like working for somebody then? He was stumped. Sorry, James, I stopped. Socialism, communism means the government owns everything with no private ownership. I believe in commie banks and commie power and commie healthcare. All right, thank you very much. So yeah. But that's the thing, man. I just want everybody to win, and the best way to make everybody win is by putting the power in the hands of everybody, so that you all win. So yeah, I'm very late, but I just want to say thank you guys for staying with me during this entire time, this entire rant. I am privileged in that way. I appreciate you guys. Oh, by the way, be sure to tune in. Wait, dude, is Nick live right now? I think he was live earlier. Maybe. I'm not sure. But if you guys would like to, you guys can tune in to RBN. I'm just checking on the schedule to see. I don't think he's live today. He might not be live. But I do know later this week, Nick will be live with Dr. Sabrina. This will be on Friday. I don't think he might have went live earlier today. But anyways, tune into that. Tonight, Savvy Sabs will be having on Brianna Joy Gray. So I will be live. I will be in the chat watching that. That's going to be very interesting. I think it's going to be Brianna Joy Gray's first time on Savvy's show. So this is going to be pretty cool. So I can't wait for that. So be sure to tune in to my sister Savvy for that. And then I will be getting into the book readings once again. So yes, I'll be continuing to reading The Presidential, Black American the Presidents by Margaret Kimberly. So do tune in for that. Also, I will continue in the reading of Water in the Spirit, Ritual Magic in the Life of the Initiation in the Life of American African Shaman, Melodoma Pachisome. I will continue in that. And then The Will to Change, Men, Masculinity, and Love by Bell Hooks. I will be continuing with that reading as well. So be sure to tune in for that. Be sure to tune in also for later this week when I do the Sabby and JB show on RBN. So tune in for that as well. We're going to have a good old time for that. The books are trying to fall. Stay there. Stay there, books. All right. So, and then with that being said, next Thursday is Thanksgiving. This year's almost over. Jeez Louise, I'm telling you. But needless to say, it is a good day. Let me check to see if I have any Rumble rants. I don't think I've ever had a Rumble rant on here before. I've never had one. It's okay. All right. Let's go into... I'll do a couple more. Lady Alex says, I'm from New York City, home of squirrels, rats, roaches, and pigeons. Yep. Waddy says, I think Madeline recently retweeted a tweet from either Nick or RBN. Yeah, she's pretty cool, man. This is what I wanted to do. I heard something about Dr. Oz. What in the world? Waddy says, apparently Dr. Oz is being picked to lead the Medicare and Medicaid agency, CMS. I blame Oprah. Why are we picking? You know what? I'm tired. I need to eat. I haven't eaten since last time I ate was I had my smoothie before I went to the gym. I haven't eaten since. I'm tired. These people make me tired. Jesus. Anyway, look. What are your plans? Water yourselves. Leave the world better than you found it. Smoke him if you got him. For me, too. Drink him if you got him. For me. And if you ain't got him, then watch something funny because joy is revolutionary. Read because reading is fundamental. Or play a video game, man. Just relax and unwind in your head. If you can play a video game, look, I'm thinking about playing me some Super Mario World. Because I'm tired. These people just get on my damn nerves. They chap my ass. They burn my biscuits. And you know what I'm trying to do? I am going to be kind to myself, and I'm going to be kind to all the people around me, especially people who you're related to, because sometimes we give our family and our friends the worst of ourselves because, they're so used to us. And, sometimes we just got to give them the best of ourselves, give them the best. Because because we can still be real while being kind and compassionate to the people around us. Okay. So, anybody who's a loved one in your life, let them know that you're happy to see them today. Okay. Let them know that you appreciate them. And then show that appreciation. Show it. Right. In whatever way that they love. Yeah. And leave the world better than you found it. Even you don't have to change the entire world, just do something nice to improve somebody's world. That can also be a form of mutual aid, right? Anywho, I just want to thank you guys for tuning in. You guys have been great. And yeah. Mwah. Forehead kisses to all of you. Now it's time for me to get in my drawers. Thank you so very much for watching my channel, and I deeply appreciate it from the top and bottom of my heart. If you wish to support the channel further, so I can keep bringing you content that is educational and informative, you can become a patron on patreon.com/Jaybefaunt. You can find that link in the pinned comment or in the description below. No matter what you give, you'll be supporting independent media and education that helps make the world better. Thank you so much, and you can watch more of my content here. Mwah. Forehead kisses, and have a beautiful day.